My name is Brad. I'm with Hoplite Strategies Ltd. We are a Fort McMurray-based construction company that specializes in roofing and siding during the summer. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about roof ventilation. So here I got a nice little pretty drawing of a house with heat from inside the house, cool air on the outside, and the heat rising through the house to kind of show you how heat gets dissipated through your ventilation system. So you got your soffit that functions as your inlet, and you have your outlet that functions, you got your like flat vents, turbo vents, whirlybirds, that functions as your outlet. And how the system works is the heat from your house rises up into the attic through the insulation, and when the heat rises out the outlet of your, say your whirlybird or your turbo vent or whatever you got up there, it leaves behind a void of air. So how do we get more air in here? The answer is inlets. So it'll actually pull that cold air up into the attic, and now this cold air will dissipate the heat and leave. So that's how you get cooling in your attic space. Another thing is, if you ever restrict the air to your inlet, you're also going to restrict it to the outlet. Say you had no inlet to begin with, your hot air would rise, the void left behind would actually pull this hot air back through the roof, which would restrict the amount that's actually getting out. So it would more or less just slow it down. Same goes if all you had was a cold air intake and no outlet. If there's no outlet, the hot air is actually going to go out here, not the cold air. The hot air is going to come out and leave here. The attic's going to remain super hot, and your air conditioning is going to start working harder because the whole attic is heated and it's got nowhere to go, so heat up your home. And you've got no cooling then. So in my opinion, the outlet is the most important of the two, but you definitely need both. What they usually recommend is having a 75% split on your intake versus your outlet, because the cold air is actually denser than the hot air, so when it comes into your attic it expands. When it expands, you need more of it to pull through to fill that void. So you want to have roughly 75% of your cold air to 25% of your hot. The other thing I wanted to get into was if, say, you're 50% up here on your outlet, so they just loaded your roof with whirlybirds, and say you're only 50% on your cold air intake. You're like, some instances where that could happen is some places, due to fire code, they actually have non-vented soffit, which means no air can pass through it. So you might have less inlet ventilation than you need to make your ventilation work properly. So if you have a 50-50 split, now it's going to be pushing out, the hot air is going to be lifting out through the roof, and there's not going to be enough cold air to fill that void, that's left behind. So now you're left with, it kind of draws back the hot air again and restricts the flow going out. So you always want to have roughly a 25 to 75% split. I'll get into the values of each vent in other videos I do, but this is just a basic video. I want to explain how the ventilation system works on your house. Now there's a few different problems that you get summertime versus wintertime. So if you have poor ventilation in the summertime, what this will lead to is your shingles getting, like, losing their life faster, and it can also create higher cooling costs because your AC is working harder. So I'm just going to show you how it kills the life of your shingle, because this is pretty important to understand why you need the cooling in your attic. Shingle, it's just a fiberglass mesh dipped in bitumen, which is basically a heavy oil, and then they sprinkle little bits of sand on top of it to act as kind of a secondary cooling method. Like, it reflects the heat from the sun back away from the shingle so that the oil doesn't dissipate through the heat. So when you have oil as a method to keep your roof dry, you're exposing it to tons of heat. Here's the sun, beats down, and now the oil wants to actually evaporate. So heat is one of the leading causes to shingle deterioration. And the other cause is erosion, because oil is lighter than water, so it actually rises whenever you get a rainfall. It'll kind of be stripped off the roof as the water's going down. And you see premature wear on the shingles due to that erosion effect in like the valleys of a roof. So when I say valley, I mean where you have a dorm or something that comes out, and this is a topographical view of a roof. So here's your dorm there. Here's your main roof. And where these two roofs meet, that's called a valley. Anyway, that's a little bit more than I wanted to get into with that, but you understand now how cooling your attic space keeps your shingles cooler and actually increases the life of them. So by not having this 25%, 75% split, you're lowering the life of your shingle. Could be as much as 5 to 10 years. Okay, so during the winter, you have a few other problems that are associated with bad ventilation. So, say your roof is covered in snow and all you have is a little flat vent on top of your roof. Now where's your heat going to go? There's no way for it to get out, so the heat's going to go out your soffit. And now this whole attic is going to stay warmer. And all this snow is going to trickle down. And then it's going to freeze right when it gets to the soffit, because there's no insulation in this area. So all your ice is actually going to form right around there, typically. And when that happens, it's a big safety risk. People walking by, it can fall on their head, it can kill somebody because they often weigh over 1,000 pounds. But another problem is it actually backs up underneath the shingle, and because it's so tight in there, it can actually capillary up the roof, and you can get a leak. So